So what are the colours of Christmas? We've just had a holiday period and it's January. Many of us, in the Northern Hemisphere at least, are experiencing that depressing feeling that happens when we're back at work, but it's still dark and spring seems like a long way away. So I hope you agree that a slightly more light-hearted question would be a good idea this week. So I think the colours of Christmas are red, green, white, gold and silver. That's it. A very short video with a short, pithy answer. But there's more to say, of course. For example, why should any colours be associated with Christmas? Indeed, why should colours be associated with anything for that matter? So I think this is because colours have meanings. Where do these meanings come from? Well, I've often argued there are at least three sources. Firstly, some associations have been around since the beginning of people. I call these innate associations. We've probably always been afraid of the dark, for example. So some of the associations we have go back a very, very long way. Secondly, there are socio-economic reasons. At one point, for example, purple dye was more expensive gram for gram than silver. And this almost certainly led to the association of purple with royalty and with being expensive. Purple was adopted, for example, by the Christian church in order to say, look how rich and powerful we are. We can afford these purple robes. And thirdly, there are cultural associations. The association of pink and blue with girls and boys, respectively, started sometime in the 20th century. But before that association, it was the other way around, at least in the UK. That is, at the beginning of the 20th century, blue was associated with girls and pink for boys. This could easily change again in the future. Let's hope so. So all of these associations are so important in design that there are lots of infographics about this topic. And many of you will have seen infographics on the internet that look something like these. Now, these infographics are absolutely fantastic, really, really useful if you want to introduce the concept of colour associations to, say, a 10-year-old child. But they are simply too naive for serious use. The idea, for example, that red means this and blue means that is ridiculous. This idea that colours have really simple, universal meanings is one of the basic misunderstandings that have been identified by the Colour Literacy Project. I'll put a link to this, of course, in the description below so you can check out what they say about it. Red, for example, can mean many things depending upon the context and culture. In combination with other colours and also form or shape, yes, red can mean Christmas. What is interesting about these associations is that to try to understand them, you need to explore cultural history. And sometimes you need to look back a really long time ago. So even before we had Christmas as we know it today, people celebrated a midwinter festival, sometimes referred to as Yule. Celtic pagans, for example, revered holly because it was evergreen, it didn't die. And they believed that the purpose of holly was to keep the earth beautiful during the cold winter months. So you can see how red and green might have become associated with Yule festivals. But of course, Christmas is also a Christian festival, and red and green also have strong associations in Christianity. Red is the blood of Christ, and green represents eternal life. The truth is, I don't know whether it was the Celtic associations of red and green with midwinter festivals, or the Christian associations of red and green that led to the current contemporary associations of red and green with Christmas. I guess it's the sort of thing someone could do a PhD in, and probably will. Similarly with white, is the use of white at Christmas because white is used in the Bible to represent purity and light? Or is it because mistletoe was another plant that was important to pagans during the winter solstice? Or is white a literal representation of freshly fallen snow? I don't know. I suspect it's all of these things to some extent, and please do comment in the comments below if you have something to say about this. The association of gold and silver with Christmas, I think, probably does stem from Christianity, and these colours almost certainly represent the gifts offered by the wise men. So what about Father Christmas and his red suit? Where did that come from? So there's an urban myth that this was created by the Coca-Cola company. Well, certainly Coca-Cola are strongly associated with the colour red and contributed towards the popular image of Santa that we have today. Commercial interests actually have always had a strong influence on our culture. And one interesting example I only recently came across is the tradition of eating Kentucky Fried Chicken in Japan at Christmas. So it turns out in the 1970s, the first KFC restaurant in Japan had this idea of promoting buckets of KFC as a Christmas treat, especially for those expats who were missing their traditional turkey. So KFC was the nearest equivalent they could get. And then this idea just took off commercially in Japan. Maybe it's because Colonel Sanders bears a passing resemblance to Father Christmas. I don't know. But today, millions of Japanese people literally order buckets of KFC at Christmas, and apparently people order it months in advance so as not to miss out. And I find this story so strange that before I recorded this video, I contacted one of my very good friends who lives in Tokyo to see whether this is indeed true, and they said yes, it is indeed true. Loads of Japanese people eat KFC at Christmas. Anyway, to get back to the main story, the truth is Santa's red suit is not all down to Coca-Cola. The concept of Father Christmas goes back a long way in Europe, many, many centuries, to a monk called St. Nicholas, and this led to the concept of Sinterklaas in Europe. And often Sinterklaas was depicted as wearing a brown or a green robe. And I remember, in fact, in the film adaptation of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which is fantastic, of course, when the children meet Father Christmas, of course, he is wearing, I think, a reddish, brownish, greenish robe rather than a red one. And separately to that European tradition, in the UK, the idea of a person representing Christmas can actually be traced to a 15th century carol, which refers to a character called Sir Christmas, who shared the news of Christ's birth. So from my research, it seems that the depiction of Santa in a red suit probably does stem from the USA, but not from Coca-Cola, but from a cartoonist called Thomas Nast, who drew cartoons for a political magazine called Harper's Weekly, and his Santa Claus appeared on the cover of Harper's Weekly on January the 3rd in 1863. And it would be another 60 years or so before Coca-Cola started to incorporate our modern image of Santa in their commercials. And certainly they helped to popularize this image, and the rest, as they say, is history. So if you like these videos I'm making, do encourage me by liking the videos or subscribing. It actually takes me a couple of hours to put one of these together. The research, I literally research this. I don't just make it up. I research it. I sort of draft, roughly speaking, what I'm going to say, so I'm not just waffling. Then I have to record it. The editing, I'm not a whiz at Adobe Pro, but I do my best. So it makes me feel that the effort is worth it if I see lots of likes on the video. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Until then, bye for now.